Bumpaloo, squirrels! So hello, and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra video, although this one is unlike the others. My name is Chris, and as I say, today we are going through patch number 0.9 for Legends of Runeterra, which will drop on the 18th of February, which is tomorrow, as you can see. And we're just going to go through the patch because this is a balance patch, and something that to me, who is predominantly come from the area of Magic the Gathering, where this doesn't happen so much, this is very exciting for me. For someone who didn't play Hearthstone or many other strictly online card games, obviously Magic has its paper problem where it can't make fine-tuning very often because of the paper collection, and people get mad that their cards become worthless. But in games like this, of course, we can, and Runeterra has their first balance patch since the open beta released, or certainly a major one at least. And we could see they're talking here at first about some of their broader aims, what they want to do, saying that every champion should have a deck where they're best fit and their dream can be realized. Non-champion cards should have at least one deck where they're a good option. Regions should have at least one competitively viable deck, and the meta should support the widest possible array of competitively viable decks. All things I think we can certainly agree with. Everyone wants a meta that is as diverse and as interesting as possible. You want to be playing as many different decks as you can and seeing how your deck stacks up against all these different kind of decks, not just playing against Shadow Isles and Ionia decks primarily. And that's what has happened recently. It was kind of realized that those are definitely the strongest regions and definitely the strongest decks. And so this kind of thing did need to happen. But I'll just say, spoiler alert, I'm very happy with what they've done. I think what they've done is right in a lot of cases. And I'm just going to release a video soon where I play Control. And they're also going to mention about where they might see some problems arising and what they're going to monitor. And as an arena player, this is so refreshing. It's so great, because when, I'm sure any of you that play Magic Arena, and my main complaint about it is that they will often say one thing and you just think, but everything you've done up to this point has said that you're not going to do that thing. Like, they've strictly focused on standard, and then recently they talked about how they want to, make Arena about more than just standard. Yet every decision leading up and prior to that was completely to nerf anything else and stop you from playing anything else but standard, and continues to be the case in a lot of places. But they say they want to make it more than just about standard. But this feels great. Ooh, sorry about that. And yeah, let's just get straight into it, because this is really exciting. We can read on. Additionally, we plan to approach balance with seasonal mindset, adjusting our methods as the meta goes through different stages between sets of new cards. Once we're out of beta and get into our regular cadence of releasing new sets, it should look something like this. New set of cards released. First balance patch, mostly medium-sized number changes based on early sense of outliers. Second balance patch, significant updates to underutilized cards in the main patch where you can expect any major champion updates. And a third balance patch, a limited number of changes to stabilize any meta issues, and then the next set of cards released. Makes sense, start off with small tweaks, basically to just get rid of any card that is just completely broken and wrong and is too powerful, or just like they release a champion that literally never sees play. Second balance patch, obviously talking about, that's the main one, that's where things are going to change the most, and they're going to try and, this is the way we want the meta to go, let's put it in this way. And then the third one, of course, being just like tweak that to just see what happened there and tweak it to be more stable. So they've got some quality of life updates here, talking about the deck builder and animations. They talk about we've got a few improvements down the line. You expect to see a redesign of how card counts are displayed. So we're talking about the deck builder, which has some issues to it as well, how many cards you're able to see in screen at once. We'll also look how to display your various currencies and wild cards and ways to make crafting cards easier. All good things and nice to know. Again, another complaint about Arena there, sorry for that. Throughout the beta, we've been on the lookout for ways to make gameplay snappier and more responsive, and the length of some animations has become something we can improve. This is great because if you're on the subreddit at all, you will have noticed a lot of people complaining about certain animations. I can think of Draven's is particularly long. I've seen some people complain about Jinx's animation being a bit long, and in general, actually, quite a few of them being a bit too long. I think what we would all prefer is something like Thresh's, where he just the thing sort of just comes out and takes the soul very quickly. It's like, oh yeah, Thresh has taken a soul, and it's like a visual reminder of this is what's happened. But it's, it happens very quickly. Or Teemos as well. Although I have seen problems with the puff caps. When you play a mushroom cloud and you've got the 3/3 who gets more mushrooms, that can become a bit excessive at times and even slow the game down and sometimes. So maybe there is more to do there, but good to see. And here we go, card updates. Let's go one by one for these champions. So we got Lux. Lux is a card, of course, that I'm sure many of you will have expected to be changed. And one thing that you'll see, many of you might think that she needed more than this, as we'll see. Their reasoning is that Lux's weaker stat line made it a little too difficult to utilize her as a linchpin build around me card. Buffing her stats will help her ability to both stick around as an engine and act as a meaningful threat on her own. So the power has changed from 3 to 4, her health from 4 to 5. She still has barrier on that first round she comes in. And this is good for me because I've got 3 Luxes. And essentially it was 3 champions that were useless before. But now, maybe a bit better. Something you'll see though, and this is a theme, is that the changes that have been made are quite slight. They aren't major changes, they aren't anything too big or, ridiculous. They are mostly small. Moving on, we get to Lux level 2. She essentially just gets the +1/+1 again, so she becomes a 5/6. Then we come to Yasuo. Level up, use stun or recall 6+ units has now become use stun or recall 5+ units. The reasoning is, while testing Ionia changes eternally, we found that Yasuo was catching collateral damage from changes aimed at elusive and hand buff decks. Inspiring Mentor was one of the best cards to utilize whilst leveling up Yasuo, and together with Deny would prove pivotal protection. We've also found Yasuo often difficult to level up in expeditions, especially when not paired with Noxus. This quest buff should address both issues, so essentially just making it easier for him to level up, and the level up version, of course, instead of doing 2 damage, deals 5 damage, and with quick attack is pretty good. I'm still unsure about Yasuo. I think the main problem he has is if you look at a lot of the spells that stun, they aren't burst spells like they are with Frostbite for Ashe. I think they may need to look at that and think, I get that stun, is stun better than Frostbite? Because when you Frostbite something, you can deal damage to it, whereas if you stun something, you're just taking it out completely. But they don't lose, health on that unit or anything like that. It's better for, I guess stun is better for attacking and Frostbite is better for defending. But that seems about equal for me. I think they've got to change the stun spells themselves to make Yasuo actually pretty good. But of course, this tweak is one that I think definitely Yasuo and Lux both definitely needed upgrades. And so that's good to see. Here's one that we'll all enjoy, apart from all of you dirty elusive players out there. Back to Back has gone from a 5-cost spell to a 6-cost spell. One of the things we love about Runeterra is the combat tricks are very playable in our constructed format, which is something I completely agree with. Anyone who again plays Magic the Gathering will know that combat tricks generally aren't played in Magic the Gathering, are considered bad. So I do like that combat tricks are quite strong. I know people have been complaining about elusive buffs, but I personally do like that stuff like that is worth playing. That said, Back to Back can be a huge blowout burst speed trick that often leaves opponents without profitable avenues for playing around it. We like this kind of effect, but such a swingy card ultimately warrants a higher cost. I could not agree more. Again, I could not agree more. Arena Battlecaster has gone from 1 health to 2. Battlecaster isn't seeing a ton of use, so it's getting a small buff to help it line up better with other 2-drops and making a more compelling option for Noxus decks. yeah, seems, this could be played now. I mean, it's still not great. It's 2 mana 2/2, give others +1. It's like, it's okay. It's not great. But in an all-out aggro deck, I could see it potentially. Crimson Curator. Battlescar's has gone from health 2 to 3. This one I could not agree with more. Battlescar's decks have been underperforming, and the Noxus side of the theme has been a bit one-dimensional. Improving Crimson Curator should increase both options and viability for these decks. Yep, completely agree. Obviously, anything where it's damage-based, when you've only got 2 health, you kind of become useless. Like, the whole point of this card is it takes damage, and if you're on 2, well then you can only ever take 1 damage. So making it 3 obviously makes it a lot better, and then once it's taken that 1 damage, it dies anyway. I would really love to see a Crimson card like that is I think a better design for these Crimson cards would have been make them more extreme, I guess. Make them more of the, let's say you've got the 0/3 and then you've got the 2/4. I think maybe make it like a 1/5, but give it +4, not 4, maybe +3 or something, 0 every time it takes damage, so that it becomes a 4/4 if it takes 1. Because I think it is a 4-cost card. So if you've got a 2/4 that becomes a 4/3 and it costs 4 and you've had to do damage probably to it, it doesn't feel great, does it? I just think they need to be more extreme, if you will. This one is probably the biggest one. And Deny has gone from cost 3 to 4. This one is one that I think a lot of people will rejoice at. A lot of people will be maybe slightly annoyed at. I said in my last video that I could see an argument for Deny being a 4-cost. I wouldn't mind if it was either way. I think Deny is always a spell that needs to be in the game. Otherwise, I think Runeterra would just become control. Just from the way the attack is set up, I think Deny has to exist in the game. But let's see what they say. Deny is moving from watchlist to changelist after rigorous internal testing and debate. See, they did have a debate about it, and I can see why. While there are good arguments for Deny to exist at 3 mana, ultimately it's proven too prevalent and disruptive to the metagame, heavily restricting viable card options. When testing this change internally, we found that play patterns involving Deny tended to feel more fair. Holding up Deny always cost at least 1 mana per turn you'd otherwise use to develop your board, a cost that makes us more involved decision making than when Deny was fully castable with spell mana. I completely agree. Someone plays a massive minion on turn 8 or whatever, and you try and vengeance it or something, and they just deny you. Well, now you can't just spend all of your creature mana and deny me. You have to play below what you could play. And yeah, I really like it. Say they've got something that they really want to keep alive. Fiora, all of a sudden, that 3 mana 3/3 Fiora that they haven't played anything turn 1, they haven't played anything turn 2. They play Fiora, you try and kill it somehow. Let's say they kill one of your units, you try and Black Spirit, they deny it. Well, now they can't do that. That's important. That's big. That's really big. And I like it. I like the change. This one as well, another one. I'm sure we've all seen this old man enough times. He's actually getting a slight buff. His health is going from 1 to 2. He's now an even better blocker. His old text was play, grant an ally in hand 1/1. Now it's play, grant an ally in hand 1/0. So he is essentially gaining the stat that you would have given to something else. And obviously that's worse. This becomes a worse card in general. Let's see what they say. Inspiring Mentor was providing too much curve efficiency and resilience to Ionia decks, with the stats granted to the buffed unit often overly protecting them by putting them out of range of similarly costed removal. Makes sense. Curving Inspiring Mentor into 1 or even 2 4/3 Navori Conspirators was too powerful a play pattern considering its consistency. I completely agree. With this change, we're ensuring that the intended weakness of elusive units, their low health, can be more exploitable. This is the reason that I say that I love the decisions they've made so far. I think if we go through all these cards, maybe Yasuo and Lux will still be a bit too weak, and I think Kalista definitely needed a buff, and I'm surprised she didn't. But otherwise, I think I couldn't agree more. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Kalista didn't see a buff, because obviously people who don't spend money on the game get what champions they get, right? And Shadow Isles is really good. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kalista is seeing play just because people to have happened to have got Kalista when they're pulling their champions and think Shadow Isles is the best, so I'll play that, but I don't have all the champions, I don't have 2 Hecarims or whatever, so I'll just play Kalista. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, and I hope they haven't made the decision based on that. Jewel Protector has gone from Power 3 and Health 3 to 4/4. This is a good one as well, and this now could become a nice card, I think. This change is complementary to the one we made Inspiring Mentor, as we don't want to over-nerf the hand buff archetype. Shifting power from Mentor to Protector, and in later part of the game, should increase deck building options and give opponents a bit more time to react or set up their own game plans. Love it. Makes sense. This is, maybe a more playable card now. We'll see. I mean, 5 mana for a 3/3 always felt pretty bad. Obviously you're giving something 3/3, but it's still not great, because obviously by this point in the game you might not have anything in hand. Here's another one for you though, and we've seen a lot of Ionian nerfs so far. Kinku Lifeblade is no longer a 2/3. He is now a 2/2. For all of you Piltover and Zorn fans, Mystic Shot now works on this man, which makes this worse. A lot worse. There isn't too Avalanche now worked on this. There isn't too many 2 damage things. 3 is normally where it's at, and it was still a problem then. But that said, what's it called? Silverwing Blade Scout, the one with tough, now trades into this. Your own Shadow Assassin trades into this. So pretty good. And it's not like Inspiring Mentor can make it, a 3/3. It's going to still be a 3/2. We previously mentioned that keeping an eye on elusive strategies and working to identify any specific candidates to adjust. One of the intended weaknesses of elusive decks is the fact that they should not be able to effectively erase them, since elusive units are naturally smaller and less cost efficient. Kinku Lifeblade often closed that door on what should be a fundamental weakness of the deck, so we're adjusting its stats to decrease its blocking power and make it easier for opposing decks to answer. This card did need a change, I think, and I think this is a good change. As we move on to another problematic card, and one that I think, if I had to change one card, it would be this card. And they have changed it, but this is probably one that I still disagree with. So what has happened to Ledros? Well, his cost has gone from 8 to 9, so now he's 9 mana, and his power has also gone from 8 to 9. His power was never the problem though. His old text was cut the enemy nexus health in half. The new text is cut the enemy nexus health in half, rounded up. I mean, so they've changed it quite a bit, to be fair. The rounded up obviously means that he can never kill you on his own, which again was a problem. So he can never kill you on his own anymore. But I still think that this card might negate control a bit too much. I just think it, like, without, I mean, obviously there are ways you can deal with it, purify and detain and stuff like that. But at the same time, does it really work? And then again, speaking that, I mean, purify does work, but then they play a second one. Obviously, for control, it's actually a good finisher itself. I don't know. Maybe I still think this one could be a problem. Being 9 cost helps as well. Yeah, we'll see. As I say, I'm glad they aren't going full. None of these changes, if you see so far, have been massive. They've mostly been give this +1/+1, or take 1 away from this, which I'm glad. And this one is one of the few that's got a different text. Let's see what they said. Anyway, Commander Ledros is an extremely powerful game-ending bomb that also acts as a recursive threat and is flexible to boot. Offering both excellent stabilization in close games and close-out potential for aggro decks that might have otherwise come up short. Overall, Ledros was a bit too good at undoing whatever previously happened in the game. Definitely so. Especially for a card that doesn't require any synergy to be effective. A card that does so much should incur a higher opportunity cost and provide opponents more room to win before and after its drop. So we're bumping up its cost to 9, which will not only delay Ledros' arrival, but also allow less flexibility when recasting it to partially compensate. We're bumping up Ledros' power by 1. If it connects, it should be ending the game. I actually wouldn't mind seeing this being a 10 cost. Make it a 10 cost 10-6. Again, I've got no problem with the power or the fearsome. My problem is with the ability, and I don't think upping the cost by 1 is the solution. Maybe it will be. We will see. Blade of Ledros. Oh yeah, that's just obviously what comes with Ledros. Rasa the Sunderer, another one we've all seen before, is now an 8 cost. No longer on turn 7 will you worry about Rasa. It will now be turn 8. Rasa offering consistent blow-up potential across many matchups, and the required setup is cheap to achieve in Shadow Isles. This often makes Rasa difficult for opponents to profitably play around and can leave them in a rough state where they know they're going to get rested, but there's not much they can do about it. The rate was just too favourable, so we're bumping Rasa up to 8 mana in order to give opponents more room to play against it. Sorry as I just take a drink. Yeah. Rasa wasn't really the biggest problem for me, and I don't mind seeing it get, slightly nerfed. Personally, I wouldn't even mind what if the stats were down on this? What if this was a 5/5 for 8? It's still good, right? It still kills 2 things if something's been killed. But then it's not like the thing was, it was a 7 mana 7/5, even if something didn't die, and so you never wanted to play it without something dying and killing 2 things of theirs. But it was a last option that you could resort to. What if this was an 8 mana 5/5? Then you never want to play. Then it becomes terrible to play if something hasn't died. And if something has died, depending on what they've got, it could become amazing. It could be, okay. So I think maybe the 7/5 is a bit too much, but maybe that's just me. Again, in fact, I'll hold my hand up. I don't know too much about League lore. I'm not a player of League myself, so I don't know about the lore and what should be changed and stuff like that. Anyway, Scuttlegeist has now become a fearsome unit. We're removing some raw power from Shadow Isles with our other changes, and it's just doing too many things too well. On the other hand, we want to help players build more synergy-driven Shadow Isles decks, so we're providing small buffs to Scuttlegeist and Tortured Prodigy to make them more compelling options for these kind of decks. So Tortured Prodigy becomes a 4/4, Scuttlegeist gets fearsome. Small changes, I'm sure that is fine. These cards didn't really see too much play, although Scuttlegeist in Expedition was pretty good, I always thought, because a lot of things tended to die. Wraithcaller, a card you've all seen before, now itself doesn't have fearsome, and Wraithcaller has been dominant value for fearsome based decks. The combination of 2 bodies, boosting all Mistwraiths, and the evasion made this the most efficient cards in Runeterra. Considering the free Mistwraith already comes with fearsome, we're cutting the keyword from Wraithcaller to reduce the amount of evasion and overall value it puts on the board. Couldn't agree more. Solid change. Still probably a good card, but nowhere near as good. I like it. The Watch List. Fearsome. Runeterra is built around a central pattern of interactive, interesting combats. One of the reasons that we were keeping an eye on elusive decks and ultimately made some changes that when firing on all cylinders, they removed much of that interactivity in large confrontations. Fearsome can have a similar impact. Once it becomes very difficult to block, the points of interaction shrink, and a lot of interesting back and forth in the game disappears. For now, we think the changes in this patch, plus some existing tools, provide enough counter pressure on Fearsome, but we'll be keeping an eye on those units and their supporting cards. Personally, I think elusive is way worse than Fearsome. I think there's enough 3 power 2 mana cards in the game to where I didn't think it was too much of an issue. And for me it was more about Shadow Isles being good and a lot of their cards having Fearsome on it, rather than Fearsome itself being a problem, if you get what I mean. No one is playing the 6/5 Fearsome in in Noxus for 5 mana or whatever. Because it's not that good. It's the Shadow Isles was good. Control. Collectively, the card updates in this patch represent a general reduction in the power of the tools that aggressive and mid-range decks have to control strategies. Combat control strategies, sorry. While control decks haven't been problematic so far during beta, we'll be keeping an eye out to see if they've been overly powered by these changes or their consequences. I did mention in my previous video where I was predicting what changes might come out, and I wasn't expecting this many, but here we are, that I think control could be well positioned depending on the changes that they make, and they clearly feel the same way. So we'll see. I think control could be in a good position, but that was with me thinking that Ledros, they would change the text on Ledros even more so than they did. So we'll see. Some clarity things, just general things. Expeditions. They've changed some cards, essentially, just to make sure that the expeditions, it feels okay to play different things, and they're changing some XP rewards. So this is expedition rewards. I saw on the Reddit that someone had had gotten to level 20 every single region, and I heard people saying like, how the hell did you do this? You know, I've been playing a lot and I'm only on, you know, level 12 in this one and level 13 in this one. And he was like, well, I just played expedition non-stop and that's the only way. And so they wanted to reduce that. They don't want expedition to be the main way that you are grinding the game, so they essentially have reduced the expedition wins cost. You still get your champion, you still get the normal rewards of what you would, but at the end of the run you get less XP essentially. And with this, they are tweaking daily adjustments to player versus player win XP to help out those who heavily grind XP or just play a ton. We're going to make sure that constructive player versus player wins always offer a reward, and the players don't feel forced to play AI matches just because they're out of player versus player XP for the day. So reduced XP adjustments for daily player versus player win. You'll now receive more XP at higher numbers of player versus player wins in one day, and will always receive at least 100 XP for constructed player versus player wins. Whoa, what just happened? Base player versus player is still 200 and 100 in expeditions, and 1 to 10 is full XP, 11 to 15 is 50, has now been changed to full XP, so you'll even get up to 15s. 16 to 20 is still 100, 21 to 30 is to 100, and 31 is also to 100. And they've also redesigned the XP structure for friend challenges. Some people got to ruin everything. We want matches to do against friends to be rewarding. The previous values overly encourage snap concessions and win-loss trading to reap full PvP XP. So friend challenges now grant 100 XP for the first 5 and 0 for any others, and loss in ties give 0, and they no longer count towards daily PvP. As I say, this is a big shame because I enjoyed that. So 6 win expeditions will now give you 1,500 shards. This is because they thought that 6 wins only gave you 33% of the shards, and 7 wins now give you slightly less. So essentially you get more for 6 and less for 7. Again, fine. They got some PC tweaks, some deck builder stuff, bug fixes, and that's that. That's the whole thing. The whole damn thing. Yeah, overall, very happy with the changes. One thing I would have liked to see was Hecarim become less powerful. I think Hecarim is very much a problem and is a key reason in why Shadow Isles is so good. Him and Elise essentially break down as the best 2-drop in the game, the best 6-drop in the game, well, the best champion in the game, that doesn't require really any synergy. Obviously, Elise has her spider synergies, but Hecarim's just amazing on his own. He's like, remove me or die right now. So I would have liked to see Hecarim change slightly. What I would have liked to see is Hecarim become really good once he'd leveled up, and not as good normal. That would force you to play the ephemeral deck type and not just focus on, oh, here's Hecarim. He's good on his own. You know, hey, when I attack with him, he's a 10/10 across 3 bodies. One of them has Overwhelm. Deal with it. That's just really good. So I would have liked to see that change slightly. I also would have liked to see slight buffs for stuff like Vladimir and is there anyone else? Kalista, definitely. Definitely needed an upgrade. But that's going to do it for this one. I hope you enjoy the patch. Enjoy your time. And I'll see you next time.